Welcome, gents. Sigma males, if you are not Delulu about your power, you're holding yourself back. Every great man who changed the game was called delusional at some point. Why? Because he believed in himself before anyone else did. He saw potential where others saw limits. He refused to shrink, even when the world told him to stay in his place. That's exactly what separates Sigma males from the rest. You don't wait for validation, you don't follow trends, you don't seek permission to be great, you move on your own terms, at your own pace, and in your own direction. And while that unsettles people, it also makes you unstoppable. Society doesn't celebrate men like you, it tries to silence them. It conditions you to tone down your confidence, question your instincts, and fit into a mold that was never meant for you. But here's the truth. If you're not obsessed with your own potential, if you're not backing yourself fully, you're handing the world the power to define you. You're not meant to compete with the average. You're built to stand apart, to set the tone, to be the kind of man who doesn't just exist, but leaves a mark. But to do that, you need to bet on yourself in ways that others are too afraid to. Own your intelligence. Own your instincts. Own the fact that you move differently. The world will catch up, but only if you refuse to hold yourself back. Number 1. Your mind is a weapon. Stop using it like a butter knife. You think deeper than most. You see angles others miss. Your brain is wired for strategy, analysis, and precision. And yet instead of using that power to dominate, you hesitate. You sit on ideas. You wait for the perfect moment. You convince yourself that you need just a little more time before taking action. Meanwhile, men with half your intelligence, half your depth, and half your potential bulldoze their way through life, winning, leading, and taking up space, not because they're better, not because they deserve it more, but because they believe they do. This is where Sigma males often trip themselves up. You're naturally introspective, which is a strength, but it becomes a weakness when it turns into overthinking. The world doesn't reward the smartest person in the room, it rewards the one who acts like they belong at the top. You've spent your life sharpening your mind, seeing patterns others can't, and thinking 10 steps ahead. But what good is all of that if you never pull the trigger? A blade that never strikes is just dead weight. The truth is, strategy without execution is nothing. A Sigma male who refuses to own his intelligence is just an observer, not a player. You don't need anyone's permission to take what's yours. You don't need the stars to align or for the world to recognize your worth before you start moving like a man who's in control. That decision is yours to make. It's time to stop moving like a spectator and start acting like the silent force you were meant to be. Your mind isn't just built for analysis. It's built for action. Wield it like a weapon, not a decoration. Step into every space like you belong there because you do. And if that makes people uncomfortable, good. That's how you know you're doing it right. Number 2, the world is built to make you feel smaller, don't let it. From the moment you were born, the world started working to make you smaller, not physically, but mentally. It taught you to shrink your presence, tone down your confidence, and second-guess yourself. It drilled into you that standing out makes you a problem, that thinking for yourself makes you difficult, and that moving on your own terms makes you a threat. And if you're not careful, if you don't consciously override that programming, you'll spend your entire life living within limits that were never yours to begin with. Look around. The system rewards obedience, not strength. It uplifts those who follow, not those who challenge. Independent men, especially those who think deeply and refuse to be controlled, are seen as disruptive. And instead of embracing their nature, too many shrink themselves to fit into spaces that were never meant for them. They dim their intelligence, downplay their ambition, and pretend to care about things that don't matter just to make others comfortable. But here's the truth. You were never meant to live by someone else's rules. If you let the world dictate your confidence, your direction, and your mindset, you'll never move beyond what it allows. And what it allows is mediocrity. The moment you start reclaiming your own voice, making moves without permission, and standing firm in who you are, you stop being controlled. And that's exactly why they try so hard to keep you small. So ask yourself, are you living for your own potential or for someone else's comfort? Are you making yourself smaller to avoid being too much? Or are you owning the fact that you are too much for the average mind to handle? Because here's the brutal truth. The world will keep trying to shrink you until you decide it no longer can. Number 3, you will be labeled too much. No matter what, so be too much on purpose. No matter what you do, people will have something to say. If you play it safe, they'll call you weak. If you take charge, they'll call you arrogant. If you move in silence, they'll call you suspicious. And if you speak your mind, they'll say you're too much. So if they're going to talk anyway, give them something worth talking about. Society loves men who blend in, who stay within the lines, keep their heads down, and never demand more than what's given to them. But the moment you step outside that mold, the labels start flying. Too confident, too ambitious, too independent. These words aren't insults, they're reactions. They're proof that your presence disrupts the comfort of those who settled for less. And here's the brutal truth. If you let those labels make you shrink, you lose. You lose your edge, your fire, your ability to shape your own reality. You start second-guessing yourself, softening your power, and adjusting your behavior to make other people comfortable. But tell me, when has playing small ever built an empire? When has blending in ever led to greatness? The men who change the game are always too much. They don't apologize for their ambition. They don't dim their confidence. They don't ask for permission. They take what's theirs. And that's exactly what you need to do. If they call you too intense, good. If they say you're too focused, even better. If they think you're too bold, too direct, too damn much, perfect. Because that means you're pushing boundaries. That means you're making waves. So stop adjusting yourself to fit a world that was never built for men like you. Be too much, on purpose. Let it be the reason you break barriers, not the reason you hold back. Number 4. Your legacy won't be written by those who underestimated you. It will be written by you. No one remembers the critics. No one builds statues for the people who sat on the sidelines, doubting and dismissing those who dared to rise. Yet too many men let the opinions of the small-minded shape the course of their lives. Sigma males? That's not you. You don't wait for the world to tell you who you are. You decide. If you don't take control of your own narrative, someone else will. And make no mistake, they will write you as a side character in a story where they call the shots. They will define your potential, place limits on what you can achieve, and set the rules for how you should live. That's how society keeps powerful men in check, by convincing them that they need permission to be great. But here's the truth. Your power is only as real as your belief in it. If you accept their version of you, you'll live a life of mediocrity, always wondering what could have been. But if you reject their limits, if you take full command of your destiny, you become untouchable. You become the kind of man who reshapes the world instead of simply existing in it. And yes, they will underestimate you, they will doubt you, mock you, and tell you you're dreaming too big. But one day when the dust settles, when your actions have carved your name into history, those same people will pretend they always believed in you. That's how it always goes. So make your choices boldly. Walk your path with unwavering confidence. The ones who doubted you, their voices fade. The ones who believed in you, they'll stand in awe. And you will have written your own legacy exactly as it was meant to be. Number 5, power is not handed to you, it's taken. Look around. The men at the top, the ones calling the shots, shaping the game and living on their own terms, didn't get there by waiting for an invitation. They weren't handed power, they took it. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you'll stop playing by rules designed to keep you in your place. Society conditions most men to be passive, to believe that success comes to those who wait, work hard, and play fair. But the brutal truth, the world doesn't reward patience, it rewards audacity. The men who rise aren't necessarily the most talented or the most deserving. They're the ones who move with certainty, who refuse to ask for permission, and who seize opportunities before anyone else even realizes they exist. If you're waiting for someone to recognize your worth, you're already losing. If you're hoping that playing it safe will eventually lead to success, you're setting yourself up for mediocrity. The ones who win are the ones who decide to win, who step into rooms like they belong there, who build their own tables when none are offered, and who make the world adjust to them instead of the other way around. And here's the kicker. You don't need approval. You don't need validation. The only thing standing between you and the life you want is the belief that you can take it. Once you adopt that mindset, everything changes. Doors that once seemed locked start opening. People who ignored you start paying attention, not because they suddenly see your value, but because you stopped waiting for them to acknowledge it. Power is never given freely. It's claimed by those bold enough to reach for it. The question is, are you one of them? Number 6, the most dangerous man is the one who doesn't fear being alone. Most people aren't afraid of loneliness. They're afraid of who they are when no one else is around. They need constant noise, endless distractions, and the comfort of others to validate their existence. But the man who has mastered solitude, he's in a league of his own. When you're truly self-sufficient, you become untouchable. You don't beg for approval, you don't chase validation. You don't tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone, and that makes you dangerous because the moment people realize you don't need them, they lose their control over you. Look at the world around you. Most men make compromises not because they want to, but because they're afraid of what will happen if they don't. They stay in unfulfilling relationships, tolerate mediocre friendships, and accept jobs that drain them because they fear isolation more than they fear mediocrity. That's the trap. That's the system designed to keep you dependent, compliant, and easily manipulated. But when you embrace solitude, everything shifts. You don't tolerate nonsense because you don't have to. You don't settle because you know your worth. You don't cling to toxic people, bad deals, or shallow connections because you understand that being alone is always better than being in bad company. And the best part? The world starts to respect you for it. People admire the man who stands alone. They're drawn to the one who doesn't beg for attention, doesn't flinch in the face of silence, and doesn't crumble under pressure. That kind of presence, it's rare, it's powerful. And it's exactly why the most dangerous man in any room is the one who could walk away from everything and still be whole. So stop fearing solitude, start mastering it, because the moment you do, you'll realize it was never a weakness. It was your greatest weapon all along. Number 7, people who call you delusional are often just insecure. Ever noticed how the moment you start thinking big, someone is always there to call you delusional? Not because your vision is impossible, but because your confidence reminds them of everything they lack. People don't hate ambition, they hate being confronted with their own mediocrity. When you dare to believe in yourself, when you move with purpose, when you chase something beyond the average life, it makes them uncomfortable. Why? Because deep down they know they could have done the same, but they didn't. They played it safe, they settled, and now, rather than face that truth, they'd rather tear you down. They'll tell you to be realistic, they'll laugh at your goals. They'll project their fears onto you, not because they're concerned for your well-being, but because your confidence exposes their insecurity. It's easier for them to call you crazy than to admit they gave up on themselves. And here's the thing, you could shrink yourself. You could tone it down, play small, and live within their comfort zone, but what would that get you? Their approval? Their approval is worthless if it comes at the cost of your potential. Look at history. Every game changer, every disruptor, every person who did something extraordinary was once called delusional. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Muhammad Ali. They all had people laughing at them until they weren't. Until reality bent to their will. Until the same people who mocked them turned around and said, I always knew you'd make it, so let them call you delusional. Let them whisper, roll their eyes, and doubt you, because their discomfort is not your problem. Your only problem is making sure that one day they're forced to eat their words. And trust me, if you keep going, they will. Number 8, when you move like you're inevitable, people will either join you or get out of your way. Confidence isn't about asking for permission. It's about acting like the outcome is already decided. When you move like success is inevitable, people stop questioning you. They either align with your energy or step aside, but they rarely stand in your way. Look around. The people who command respect aren't always the smartest, the most talented, or even the most qualified. They're the ones who believe in themselves so deeply that the world has no choice but to believe in them too. They don't seek approval. They don't wait for validation. They show up with the presence of someone who has already won. And here's the secret. Certainty is contagious. When you carry yourself like you belong, people assume you do. They stop looking for reasons to doubt you and start looking for ways to be a part of what you're building. But the opposite is also true. If you hesitate, if you second guess, if you move like you're hoping instead of knowing, the world will reflect that doubt back at you. People sense uncertainty and they treat you accordingly. That's why two people with the same skills can have wildly different outcomes. One moves with conviction, the other with hesitation. The first becomes unstoppable, the second fades into the background. So what does this mean for you? It means you stop explaining yourself. Stop over-explaining your vision to people who don't get it. Stop looking for permission to take up space. Just move. Move like your success is inevitable, like your presence is a given, like your goals are not up for debate. The world responds to certainty. If you act like you're destined to win, people will either join you or step aside. Either way, you keep moving forward. Number 9, your power is a responsibility. If you don't use it, you waste it. Having power isn't just a privilege, it's a responsibility. A mind like yours, an instinct like yours, a presence like yours, if you're not using them to their full potential, you're not just holding yourself back, you're leaving a void in the world that only you could have filled. Think about it. How many people out there settle for mediocrity because they don't believe they're capable of more? How many never push themselves, never challenge the status quo, never step into their full potential? Too many, and the world is worse off because of it. Now ask yourself, are you going to be one of them? You were built differently for a reason. Your intelligence, your insight, your ability to see things others don't. It's not random, it's not an accident. You were given tools and it's on you to use them. A blade that stays in its sheath never sharpens. A mind that isn't challenged never grows. And a man who doesn't step into his own power, he robs himself and the world of everything he could have been. Someone out there needs what only you can offer. Your ideas, your leadership, your ability to navigate situations with precision. These are assets, not just for you, but for the people who could benefit from them. But they'll never know, and you'll never see your true impact if you keep yourself small. The worst thing you can do with power is waste it. The second worst thing, pretend you don't have it. Because the truth is, you do. You always have. The only question left is, what are you going to do with it? Number 10. You've been trained to undersell yourself. Stop that. Since the moment you could think for yourself, the world has been conditioning you to shrink. Be humble. Don't be arrogant. Stay in your lane. But let's be real. Humility, when misused, is just another form of self-sabotage. If you constantly downplay your intelligence, your instincts, and your natural edge, don't be surprised when the world treats you as less than you are. Look around. The men who move with quiet confidence aren't waiting for permission to own their power. They don't apologize for being sharp, strategic, and unshakable. They don't need to prove themselves with loud words or flashy displays. They simply are. Their presence alone commands respect. But too many high-value men dilute their strengths to make others comfortable. They bite their tongues when they should speak. They blend in when they should stand out. Why? Because they've been told that owning their power makes them cocky or too much. Here's the truth. The only people who will ever have a problem with your confidence are those who lack it themselves. Owning your intelligence doesn't mean bragging. It means moving through life knowing exactly who you are and what you bring to the table. It means making decisions with certainty, standing firm in your values, and refusing to water yourself down to fit into spaces that weren't built for men like you. You don't need to scream your worth from the rooftops. You don't need to convince anyone. You just need to stop hiding it. Because when you carry yourself like a man who knows his value, the world has no choice but to respond accordingly. So stop underselling yourself. Stop waiting for permission. Walk into every room like you belong there, because you do. Number 11, you are a threat, and that's a good thing. Most men waste their energy trying to be liked. They soften their edges, laugh at jokes they don't find funny, and make themselves smaller just to be accepted. But you walk into a room and people feel something different. It's not arrogance, not aggression, just a quiet, unshakable presence that says, I don't need to prove myself to anyone. And that unsettles people. Society tries to make men believe they should be harmless, that being agreeable, nice, and unthreatening is the best way to move through life. But here's the truth. Respect is never given to men who pose no threat. The world doesn't value those who are incapable of standing their ground. It values those who can destroy but choose not to. That's the difference between forced respect and genuine influence. Your ability to be dangerous, mentally, physically, strategically, isn't something to suppress. It's something to control. A man who has power but refuses to wield it recklessly is the one people follow. You don't have to raise your voice to command a room. You don't have to throw a punch to win a battle. Your very presence, your intelligence, your independence, your unwillingness to conform is the power. Weak men will call you intimidating because they can't predict you. The system will try to label you as difficult because you don't comply. But high-value men, real leaders, they recognize what you are. They see the strength behind the silence, the restraint behind the sharp mind, and they respect it. So stop trying to blend in. Stop worrying about making people comfortable. You are a threat, not because you seek destruction, but because you could if you wanted to. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you different. And that's exactly why you win. Here's the truth. The world will never fully validate you. It won't hand you permission to be great, nor will it celebrate your potential until it's undeniable. That's why you have to be the one who believes in yourself first, relentlessly, unapologetically, even delusionally. Because if you don't, you'll let doubt, hesitation, and the noise of the world keep you small. Being a Sigma male means operating on a different frequency. You don't need constant approval. You don't crave a seat at someone else's table. You build your own. And that takes a level of confidence that others may not understand. They'll call it arrogance. They'll call it delusion. But that's only because they don't have the courage to bet on themselves the way you do. Look around. Every man who changed the game, who rewrote the rules and built something extraordinary, had to first believe in himself before anyone else did. That belief, it wasn't always logical. It wasn't always based on what was in front of him. It was a vision, a conviction, a refusal to accept limits. That's the mindset that separates leaders from followers, legends from spectators. So if you ever find yourself doubting your power, remind yourself no one else is coming to hand it to you. You either own it or you waste it. You either act as if your success is inevitable or you let the world convince you it's impossible. And the moment you start moving like you're unstoppable, the world will have no choice but to adjust. Sigma males don't ask for permission. They don't wait for the world to see their worth. They know it, they own it, and they walk through life like they were built for more because they were, and so are you. Thank you for watching, gents, and God bless you.